Good evening, everyone. Thank you so much for joining us for Courageous Conversations, Call for Courageous Action. This is part 2 of a discussion that was started earlier this year to talk about some of the issues that we're seeing in our community and how we can be of support to our students and our families. I'll turn the microphone over to Dr. Joyce Morley, board member for DeKalb County School Board District 7, to bring greetings. Dr. Morley?
Thank you, Dr. Tinsley. I want to say good evening to everyone. And I know it's a rainy, windy day, but we're here to deal with and begin to look at the violence, the safety of our children, the safety of our families, our community. What can we do as a community coming together, a family together, because that's what we are. And we look at the schools are a microcosm of the microcosm of what's going on. We are a part of everything that's larger and greater. Helping parents to be able to do what they need to do, helping students do what they need to do. And it's ironic when I turned on the news today and before I got on the Zoom meeting, and there was one shooting after shooting after shooting. How many mothers and how many fathers and grandmothers and grandfathers and other relatives have had to look at their children being buried and different things that are going on. And so we thought it would be in the best interest as we do part 2. We did part 1 early September, part 2 of Courageous Conversations, and helping us to be able to come together and form some way of being able to try to at least impact and ameliorate the situations of violence in our communities in DeKalb County. And I really believe if we can do something in DeKalb County to be able to cut down on the incidents, that we can probably do something in other counties also. DeKalb County School District can serve as a model with the DeKalb County community, with the clergy, and with all the other aspects as far as the being united front that we would like to have. We're the parents, we're the students. So we're going to bring all of that together tonight. We're going to bring all these people together in this courageous conversation. What's courageous about it? We're going to stand boldly, we're going to speak truth, and we're going to talk about real issues that actually affect us and affect us being able to educate our children and for parents to be able to actually rear their children. So what's the rationale and the reason for this? Just as I said, we're here to try to do what we can to take back our schools, our homes, and our communities. We're here to put a dent in violence. We're here to come up with practical approaches. We're not going to gripe tonight. We've been talking about what the problems are. We're going to mention some of those, but at this particular time, what we'd like to do is to be able to actually come up with some steps and begin to move forward. So this won't be the last of the Courageous Conversations, because Courageous Conversations are going to become Courageous Actions. And I'm looking forward to everyone being a part of the actions that we're going to take in order for us to have a healthy school system, healthy homes, healthy living environments, and healthy community. So we have some really great people on here tonight that are going to help us to be able to do this, because we can't do it all by ourselves. And so before we do an introduction of everyone that's going to be helping us to do that, and the rest of you that are here, everyone is important. We have all the VIPs on here tonight. That's everyone who's on this Zoom meeting. And for those who couldn't be here, we're hoping that you'll spread the word and let them know what we're doing here in DeKalb County. Dr. Tinsley, you want to start up? We can look at some of the summation of the concerns and previous courageous conversations that we can go through and look at some of the things that are plaguing us as to why we're looking at holding these courageous conversations. And as we said, courageous conversations call for courageous actions. And so we're going to be taking those courageous actions. You can start and I'll just come in and we have a list of them. But we're not going to focus on all of them tonight. We just want to be able to remind you of what we talked about as we move forward with our program tonight.
Absolutely, Dr. Morley. So during our previous Courageous Conversation, there were many themes that were presented, and I'll just share a few of them with you just for consideration. Negative media influences, bullying, mental health of students, staff, parents, self-esteem, the emotional and physical safety of students, parents, and staff at home as well as at school, lack of student discipline, student oversight at home, who's in charge, And how does that spill over to the school and the community? Dr. Morley, feel free to jump in at any time.
Surely.
Okay.
So, as we said, when we look at crime, we look at violence, we look at the safety of our children. It's in our homes. The schools are only a microcosm of the macrocosm of what goes on. And so when we begin to look at some of those things we discussed before, low student academic achievement, graduation rate, and then we have to ask the question, by whom? Who are we focusing on? As we look at low expectations of students and parents and the school, cultural confusion and cultural denial. Dr. Tinsley already mentioned the mental health. We've been focusing on mental health for quite some years. We have to also begin to look at the issue of a gun. There are no gun laws and weapons controls that are here within our state and within our town. As we begin to look at domestic violence, and October was Domestic Violence Month. And so sometimes we talk about violence, we look at gun violence, but we don't think about domestic violence. A lot of it is taking place in the home. We have some of our teens engaged in domestic violence. And so we have to begin to understand, how do we take violence out of the picture? And when we think of the fact of lack of student discipline, student oversight at home, at school, and in the community. And we're not here to blame anyone here tonight. We're here to come together as a united force. That village that it actually takes in order to be able to ameliorate the situation and be able to, at some point, solve some of these. And then we talk about limited and unclear and inconsistent child rearing assistance for parents. Parents are stressed out and stretched out. They need help. So a lot of that many times can also lead to the lack of safety and the violence. Dr. Tinsley?
Yes, ma'am, Dr. Morley. And going on to poor communication and communication skills, lack of community or poor communication between entities that help our children and families, conversations and inconsistent meetings that actually result in little to no action, action plans or lack of clear action plans to impact targeted concerns related to students and families, the lack of understanding of the intersection between culture, poverty, economics, and violence, few, if any, positive community after school, after hour, and summer programs for our students to be engaged in, parental involvement. And I'm so happy that we're having this session as well as other sessions that we've had, to offer a different medium to allow parents to become involved and to be abreast of what's going on in the educational lives of their children. Also, we have to remember rules, lack of consistent regulations, accountability, and consequences, not just in school, but at home and in the community, and especially when we talk about what happens with our students as they encounter the legal system. Dr. Morley?
Yes, most certainly. So those are a few. Just give you a couple more, and then we're going to move forward, because I think we have to be reminded, as I said, why we're here. Why is this conversation tonight so important? As we begin to look at what we can do and what we're willing to do in order to get rid of some of these situations that are causing the violence and causing our children, our homes, our community to not be safe. The lack of equity, when there's no equity there, it makes it very difficult. And we look at the infiltration of gangs, and no one wants to talk about those things. We have gangs there, but then we have some of our children are looking for a sense of belongingness. They don't know where to belong. Some of our children are having to work over hours and do different things. Children are stressed out too. I remember when I was a kid and you would say that you had your back hurt, and they would say to you, you don't have a back, you only have a gristle. So I don't know how many people heard that also, but children are carrying a lot on their plates and on their backs. And so we have to also look at the continuing education disparities and their relationship to violence. How does this all come together? And so what we want to do tonight is begin to look at those issues, but not only look at the issues, how can we actually impact? How can we do something different? How can the school, how can the home with the parents? And it doesn't have to be biological, it could be surrogate. And my philosophy is, if you feed a child long enough, then they're your child. And then we have to look at law enforcement, where does that come together? In the schools, law enforcement, the community's law enforcement, and then we begin to look at the community itself. What about the CEO's office? What about the clergy? You know, the church is so powerful. And when we have the church and synagogues, anything that's dealing with religion, spirituality, calling upon them, they used to be the backbone and the base and the basis for everything that was going on when certain groups couldn't get education. The church, the community, those people came together. So what we're doing is making a concerted effort here tonight to see how we can be able to pull it all together with the DeKalb County School District and begin to move forward and see what we can do to actually put a knock into violence, knock it off the track, let it be a word more than actions. Help our children learn how to communicate effectively, our parents, our teachers, our principals, our educators, everybody, board members, everyone, to be able to communicate effectively and efficiently so they will put down the gun and have a conversation, a courageous conversations. So we want to begin to introduce, if we can have the introduction of the people that are going to serve with our panels. And before we go on, I want to ask, are there any board members here tonight? I can't see everyone, so I don't know. Any board members?
I'm checking.
I didn't see anyone come in, Dr. Morley and Dr.
Okay. Okay. So I will allow you to go ahead and introduce our participants and the people that we have that are going to be a part of this conversation tonight. You've heard the reason, you've heard the rationale, you've heard some background, you've heard what the conversations have been about. Now we want to actually get to the meat of it and see what we can do in order to begin to make a dent in violence in our communities, our schools, and our homes.
Thank you, Dr. Morley. Well, I will start off by sharing. I am Interim Superintendent, Dr. Vassan Tinsley, and I have several members of my team with me today. I have Chief Bradley Gober, who oversees our Public Safety Department, Dr. Deborah Moore Sanders, who is our Deputy Superintendent for Student Empowerment, Ms. Marcia Coward, who works with Family and Community Engagement. We have a principal of one of our elementary schools, Dr. Corey Stiegel. We have a principal of a middle school, Mr. Eric Kemp. And I'm sorry, let me tell you which school they represent. Dr. Corey Stiegel of Panola Way, Mr. Eric Kemp of Mary McLeod Bethune Middle School, and a high school principal, Ms. Tiffany Sims at Towers. We also have with us several members of the Family Engagement Department. We also have our Director of Student Relations, Dr. Kisha Towns. I am looking through the gallery here. And we also have with us Ms. Denise Rebels, who is our Deputy of Wraparound Services. So these will be the lead persons, Dr. Morley, that will engage us from the school district. But I'm happy to say that we also have some community representatives with us as well. We have Pastor Carlton Moore, who is the pastor of Clarkston First Baptist Church. And we also have representatives from the DeKalb County government. And I see Major Robertson here representing the police department. We also have with us several of our regional superintendents in the DeKalb County School District with us, Dr. Trisilla Weaver, Ms. Jacqueline Taylor, Dr. Sean Tart. I'm scrolling to see if I'm missing anybody. I think those are the ones that we have here. Plus, we have several other principals in our other regions with us that are here for the engagement. So with that being said, Dr. Morley, I think we are ready to get started.
Well, do we want to go ahead, Ms. Coward, and introduce the other people the students that we have?
Oh, yes.
So I don't see any of our students who have joined us just yet, but I know that there's several of our parents who have joined us. Okay. And I don't want to be the one to mess up their names. So I'm going to put that off to Tanya Winters Buford, because she works with them more than I do. So she will do a better job at articulating their names.
Hi, good evening. Thank you, Ms. Coward. We have with us tonight Ms. Krista Durant, and Ms. Durant is the PTSA president at Idlewood Elementary School. We also have Mr. Richard Green and Mrs. Talia Green, who are parents of students at Bowie and at Lithonia High School. And we also have with us Pastor Keontae Harris of Greater Piney Grove, who is a PAC member and also a parent of 2 students. And I'm having a 50-year-old moment. Pastor Harris, where are your students at Princeton?
Princeton and Winbrook. Princeton
and Winbrook. So these are all members of the, they're members of various organizations within DCSD, but they're also part of our Parent Leadership and Development Coalition. So thank you all for joining us tonight.
Thank you all for joining us. This is awesome, you know, to have so many parents and so many people from the community. We can't do it by ourselves. You know, I remember one of my fellow board members a couple of months ago, you know, there had been a recent shooting, and this person said, we need to pull the district together, pull the interim superintendent together, get Chief Gober together, get everybody together. What are we going to do? And I said, we can't get it together ourselves. We can't do it by ourselves. You know, this is truly an act of community coming together. This is truly that village that we used to have. You remember when we were coming up, I don't know about some other people, but I know if the neighbor said you did something, you did it whether you did or not. And the neighbor could say something to you and could discipline you, chastise you. But these days we have gotten away from it because parents are having a hard time. They do need help. And our children are having a hard time. They need help. Our teachers, everybody's having a hard time. We all need help. And so it's coming together and making sure that that happens. And so what I'd like for us to do is to first just go through the participant list, you know, with the pastor, the representative that we have, the 2 parents, and we have the educators, we have who are identified, the security person, Dr. Chief Gober, and we also have Major Robinson for them to be able to see just a brief synopsis, about a minute, of what do you see as needing to be done in trying to impact the violence in our communities. We're also going to hear from the students once they log on, and we're going to hear from our community. So hopefully we'll be able to hear from the administration of DeKalb County, and most certainly, last but not least, we'll hear from spiritual leader. We'll hear from Pastor Carlton Moore and have him to give some of his thoughts about what can we do, and then we're going to get a little bit more in specifics. But what do you see more so right now? What do you see as some of the things that are actually impacting your area as a parent? What is a parent going through and dealing with violence? You know, what are y'all dealing with? And then when we look at police chiefs, what are you all dealing with? Major, what are you all dealing with? Chief Gober, what are you all dealing with? And then we want to be able to hear from the pastor, violence in the churches. What are you dealing with out here as you go through this every day? And then when we hear from someone from DeKalb County, what are you dealing with? We want to hear from the principal. Principal, what are you dealing with? How are you all handling the situation? And then we'll talk about some of the things that you all are doing. So the first round is going to be, what are you all actually having to deal with? And when it comes to violence and the safety of our children, the safety of our homes, our families, and our community. So we'll start with the parents. Let's give the parents an opportunity. If you come forth, give your name and where you have children, and then just a brief synopsis. And remember, as I said, now we're not here to complain. We're here to try to come up with some ways we can comply and be able to fix the situation. It's not a competition. It's a coalition. It's a cooperative front that we're putting together. Parents, you ready?
I can start. This is Krista Durant. I'm the PTA president over at Idlewood Elementary School. I am from Boston, Massachusetts, and literally not 5 months into moving to Clarkston, my son and I witnessed a murder literally like 10 feet from my front door. Yes. And we're in a neighborhood that, you know, they say, oh, it's better than it was, but it's still not good enough. Mm-hmm. Like, we shouldn't have to look out, our bedroom windows to a 19-year-old young man being gunned down in front of our home.
Mm-hmm. Thank you.
There's not, well, and to top it all off, like there's not a day that I go outside where I don't see my neighbors walking around strapped with, you know, their pieces are visibly worn. So it's like, I kind of second guess, you know, raising my children in this type of, not environment. I mean, it's our own people. It's I'm scared for their safety and what they're being exposed to at this point.
Okay. Well, hopefully tonight you'll be able to have some answers. We'll be able to move forward as Ms. Durante and help you to be able to have some ways to be able to look at it in order to be able to help make your environment, the living environment, safe. Because imagine if as parents, if parents are having some concern, what about the children? The children are just as fearful. And many times they don't know how to actually verbalize the emotions that they're faced. They don't know how to be able to talk about it. We had another parent. Thank you so much. And we'll come back around to you as to some ideas of what you think that can help us to be able to manage the situation. The next parent.
I guess I'll go next.
Good
evening. I'm happy to be here. I'm glad that we get a chance to really sit down and talk about the issues, but also that we're putting our heads together to find solutions. My name is Richard Green. My wife and I have been working with Ms. Buford, and we've spoken to about some of the issues that we've seen, specifically in our high school. What we've seen is pretty much a culture of violence. Lots of fights, which is huge, and we've seen it on the news as well. There's lots of fights. So that got us kind of thinking about what can we do to, what can be done to, to help with that problem. So we started doing our research, and as parents, what we found, one of the major issues that we've seen is a lot of these kids aren't getting suspended after these fights. That's huge, because anybody that gets embarrassed in front of their peers, they're coming back the next day to get revenge or whatever, and that escalates the situation to even more dangerous levels, especially if they're not getting sent home. If there's no consequence or repercussion, they're just back the next day. To me, that escalates, and I think that's one of the major issues that we've seen that sort of perpetuates the violence that we've seen, is lack of consequence. And when I was younger in school, in high school, I got in a fight before. We're from Denver, Colorado, so 12 years. But in Denver, I've gotten in a fight before. All of us have. The consequences were they were much more severe for me, to the point where I didn't want to do it again. So I ended up having to do community service, and they had me outside on the side of the road picking up trash on the side of the road, things like that. But there were more severe consequences aside from just getting suspended. But there has to be more of a consequence, because if there's a fight and then they go home and come back the next day, we live in retaliation culture, like you were saying earlier. And the culture, it does add to that. This is retaliation culture, and that is going to perpetuate itself in the schools if there's no consequence, if there's no discipline for it. Yeah, so we've seen it escalate to the point where we asked. They send us all the fights in school and all that stuff. So we're kind of keeping a record to see what we can do to kind of help it. And, there's a lot of jumpings as well. Back in my day, we used to fight one-on-one, but now they're jumping people and all that kind of stuff. So besides the lack of discipline, we've also seen that, I'm sure our school is not the only one, but they are being run like prisons, or at least this one is. They're being run like prisons. They go on lockdown. It's just really institutionalized, baby. Really, it's really institutionalized. And what that does to the emotional health of the children is it gets them prepared for institutionalization. positive reward would also be a great thing.
We're gonna come back. We're gonna come back and allow you to be able to give a couple of things of what you see needs to be done. So right now, what we want to do is hear from you as some of your experiences, what you're seeing. And Mr. and Ms. Green, most certainly, yep, the fights and all of that. And so here's where the home and the school and the community all come together. And you talk about consequences. So here's where law enforcement comes together. Do we need to have legislators? So maybe that next time around, as we expand this and begin to look at what can be done, the other people we need to be at the table, because one of the things that's come about, and I think has been a situation, not a problem over the years, is that there are laws and lawmakers who impose laws on parents and teachers and schools and everything else. And so that prohibits a lot of the consequences and accountability by children, by parents, by the school. And so I think there are probably many more on the school than there are in other places. So we're going to come back to you. So have two things in mind that you think that can be done, you're willing to do when we come back around. But I really appreciate you all being here, because that's going to be important. This is being recorded. We're taking notes, because it's not going to be the last time around. Thank you so much, Mr. and Ms. Green. Is there another parent on board?
I'd like to say something. My name is Latasha. My son is a 7th grade student at Bethune. And so I do understand what Mr. Green is speaking of, because at this age, well, even younger ages, but at the middle school age going on to high school, they have a lot of different hormones and stuff, and a lot of different adrenaline and things of that sort, and they can get lost if they're not guided properly. And so I think it's not just looking at the discipline factor, because we have to have a healthy balance. So discipline is definitely something that needs to happen. We need to look and find out exactly what's going on in their minds, and why are they doing these types of things? What are they thinking? What made you do this? Did you do this because you were upset? Did you do it because your friend? What type of character these children have? All of us as adults, we should be able to determine the thoughts of a child once they talk, because regardless of their physical stature, or, how beastie they get, or, how smart they think they are, we've been here a lot longer, and we can kind of differentiate, what's happening and why it's happening. And so if you look towards those type of things first, then I think that I used to be I'm still in early childhood. And so I believe in getting in early, manipulating the mind positively early. And if you can nip some of these things in the bud, then, I think you will be able to have some type of progress. Children don't want to just be talked at. They want to be talked to.
Latasha, we're going to come back. We're going to come back with some of those things that you believe that can help, because you've given some great things. So you're coming from that mental, emotional type place. You're coming from that social emotional. How do we deal with that? How do we know what's going on? That's going to be key. So please hold on to those points, because when we come back around, we're going to look at exactly the things that can be done. So right now we want to know of incidences where people have, like that Ms. Green said, they're the fights that are going on. And then, we had the other parent, as Ms. Durante said, I saw a murder take place. Should a child be exposed to that? It lasts forever and a day. So you're talking about post-traumatic stress disorder. So please hold on to that. We're going to come back around, because we're going to do another round, come back around for you to give two things that you believe that cannot, and those things are going to be very important. Will you please? Thank you very much.
Yes.
Okay. Any last parent? We have one. If we have one more, was that the last parent?
No, I'm on here as well,
Okay,
and pretty much want to thank you. Ditto a lot of what my other parents have said, because we all see this. I know for me, just the lack of
Give your name
parental.
again, please.
I'm so sorry. It's yes, ma'am. Shiante Harris.
Okay.
Shiante Harris, a child at Winbrook, a fifth grader at, excuse me, a fifth grader at Princeton, a kindergartner at Winbrook,
Okay,
as well as he attended the ELC at Terry
okay,
Mill. And
okay.
so a full-fledged DeKalb County parent. And so in terms of just interacting with other parents, some feel like school, they're not welcomed in the school. And so if they want to come up there, they're not welcomed. Sometimes they're talked to very harshly by teachers, administrators, even some principals who talk down to parents. And so, of course, I would think they would carry that over to their children. And so the lack of parental involvement has been one of the bigger things I've seen. And again, elementary level, I've not gotten to middle or high. I'm
Mhm.
nervous about it because I hear what happens in the schools. I know my child is very impressionable and I don't want any of that to happen or he to be around any of that. But in turn, my thing is parental engagement, engaging the parents professionally and respectfully. Because if
Right.
you pop off, they're gonna pop off too.
Mhm, mhm. Thank you so much. You know, as we come back to you and look at those things that could make a difference, I think it's important to recognize, yeah, children are impressionable. And so when we look at the things that there's that carryover, that's why it's so important. Parents are the first educators of their children. And when my children were in school and I would go to the school and they had conflicts because of the fact that I worked in the school and I lived in the community. But the thing about it is that it is that how can we come together with respect and love because we're all doing the same thing. So we'll talk a little about that. And you see that not taking place when you see the lack of communication or poor communication. That's not the kind of stuff that we want. That's not what we're here for, Ms. Harris. And so we'll come back around and we'll have you to give a couple of things that you believe that need to be done. So let's move to the educators. We have an elementary principal on board, Dr. Stiegel. We have a middle school. We have high school, and I'm going to give each one of them an opportunity to share something that they're noticing within school when you're looking at violence that can actually impact the safety of our children. And then they'll come back around and tell some of the things that they're doing in order to impact those problems that might be there. Dr. Stiegel, you want to start?
Yes, ma'am. Thank you, Dr. Morley, for the opportunity, and greetings to my superintendent, Dr. Tinsley, as well. Dr. Morley, we are definitely in some unprecedented times in our schools. Students I'm seeing levels of stress that I've not experienced in 21 years of education. I'm seeing stress in teachers that I've never seen before in my career, as well as parents. And I believe we're at a heightened level because of the pandemic. I think the pandemic put us on a trajectory that we are not prepared to be in. And so what I'm seeing is a lot of tense buildup with parents, where we even had a parent pull a gun out on another parent out in our parking lot.
Mm.
So we don't really have all of the fights and things that you're hearing about. Now, we are busy. I don't want you to think that we are getting a chance to just chill at Panola Way, but we are not experiencing the crazy levels of fights because we're just as vigilant as we can to monitor the restrooms, monitor the cafeteria, just have an adult presence all the time so the kids know they're safe and that we're doing everything humanly possible to make sure that they're safe. I'm grateful for my regional superintendent. Officers get to come through, walk through our buildings, and just having a presence so they see police, they see us, they see it's just I think many hands make light work. And so I'm seeing that we're just trying to counteract everything we can by letting kids know we're there, we love them. I still hug on boys and girls. So I know somebody may say, hey, you're not supposed to touch boys and girls, but I'm gonna still hug on them. I'm gonna let them know I love you because I want people doing that to my boys and girls too. I have my own kids, so I'm trying to make sure I love on kids. God called me to be a preacher. He also called me to be an educator. And I want boys and girls to know your principal loves you. And for as long as I'm gonna be a principal, I'm gonna make sure boys and girls know that. So I see a heightened level, and I think we need, I know we're gonna come back to it, social, emotional support. And I think with Dr. Tinsley's vision and her background, the most powerful things that I've had since I've been in DeKalb came through her office when she was there as the assistant superintendent. And so I think some of those things with Hands On Atlanta and tapping into all of these preachers in my neighborhood that are great to our school.
We're gonna come back. We're gonna come back to you and
Yes,
let you
ma'am.
talk about those things, because I know you
Yes,
also
ma'am.
have some grand news that I'm excited
Yes.
that you're gonna share about what's going on at Panola Way in
Yes,
order
ma'am.
to impact the violence and the safety of our children. Thank you so much, Dr. Stiegel. So we're
Yes,
gonna
ma'am.
hear from Mr. Eric Kemp, who's the principal at Mary McLeod Bethune Middle School. Mr. Kemp, you want to share some of the things that you're noticing in the school? Then you're gonna come back around and be able to tell some of the things that you're doing in order to be able to impact it.
Yes, ma'am. Good evening, everyone. Good evening, Dr. Tinsley. Good evening, Dr. Morley. And good evening, all the other dignitaries, parents, students, and my colleagues. Eric Kemp, principal of Bethune Middle School. Just like Dr. Stiegel said, schools are nothing but a microcosm of what the communities are, what this world has become. So we have to deal not only with just giving the core subjects, the connection classes, but we have to give life lessons. One thing that at Bethune, and I've asked the teachers to bring out the resiliency in not only themselves, but their kids. They're stressed throughout the school day, throughout the school system, throughout every position. Even our custodials are stressed. And we have to, I tell the teachers and the faculty and the students, we have to love on one another. If we don't protect and help and assist one another, we won't make it. We're just trying to find coping mechanisms so that we can not just get through the day, not just get through the lesson, but to get through life. And it takes everyone, it takes a village to get to that point.
Mm-hmm. Awesome, awesome. And one of the things I think we have to recognize, the middle school is a very, very difficult time. And I'm not telling you what I heard. I was a counselor in the middle schools before, and Eric Erickson calls it a period of stress and storm. Here's a time when children are just trying to figure out who they are and whom they are and who they belong to. Does a girl like me? Does a boy like me? And most boys are trying to skirt away from them while the girls are trying to go after them. And here's a period where you have a girl, their bodies are changing. So if their bodies are changing, their minds are changing. They're very impressionable at that time. They want to fit, they want to belong, they want to be accepted. They want people to be able to see them. And so it's a very, very difficult time. And so sometimes, the parents used to say back in the day, he or she is getting to the point where they're smelling themselves. And so they're having that, where girls' cycles are coming on, boys are having wet dreams, all these things are going on. And so it also configures into some of the thought processes, some of the media attention, some of the infiltration of the media on those phones, on their TVs, wherever they're watching, on videos and things like that. And so that's a very, very good, difficult time. So we're going to come back to you, Mr. Kemp, shortly and ask some of the things that you're doing. We're going to go to the high school level, and we have Miss Tiffany on the call from Towers High School. And Miss Tiffany, is Jones or James?
Tiffany Sims.
Sims. Okay.
Yes.
Okay. I don't know where I get James and Jones. Okay. Go ahead, Miss Sims.
Okay. Good evening to everyone. Thank you, Dr. Tinsley and Dr. Morley, for the opportunity to come and share. Some of the things that we are experiencing at Towers High School that is leading to violence and the unsafety of our building, we're finding that our students are coming to school with issues that they're bringing from the neighborhood. And they're coming to school to fight. And one awesome leader on the call tonight brought out the fact that school is a safe place for the kids to fight, because in their neighborhoods there's the potential that they will someone won't be there to stop them, but where they're in the building, they know that administration, teachers are going to be there to intervene if there is a situation. But they bring the issues from the neighborhood to fight one another. We have siblings, you have your pods of friends. If there's someone, one or two people that are against each other, then they're siblings or their neighborhood friends, then they're ready to jump into the fight. We're also experiencing issues with stress. A lot of our students, they're raising their siblings, they're having to work. So they're coming to school, they're stressed. And if someone says what they feel is the wrong thing to them, then there's the argument, there's the fight. We're having an issue with marijuana and vaping coming into our building as well. Here again, kids smoking, trying to deal with the stress, or students in the building that are attempting to sell the drugs or the vape pens so that they can make money to take care of themselves or their families. And we also have the social media crisis, where there's negative content that's being fed through the social media that's going throughout our buildings. And what we're finding is that our students, they do not know how to talk about the conflict that they are having with their peers at home. Also, we've discovered that they don't know how to have these conversations, or that it's even okay to get help to deal with the conflicts that they are having. So these are some of the issues that we are seeing at Towers that's contributing to an unsafe environment and violence in the school.
Thank you so much, Ms. Sims. And we're going to come back to you as to what you're doing. We know that you have some exciting news to share with us also. So we've gone the gamut. We've gone from the elementary, middle to high school, developmentally, and we have to look at developmentally what's going on and the role of everyone. And again, I want to keep iterating. The school is a microcosm of the macrocosm. It's a part of society. So we have all the society coming into one place. And so what can we do to make sure that those entities of society, the home, the community, all come together, so when they come into the school that we can have a different way of doing it, and then the school can be able to receive its part and do its part of what needs to be done, because everybody is accountable and responsible for what happens to our children and our families. I'm going to move now over to to Chief Gober and to Major Robinson, and Chief Gober is going to give his perspective as the Chief of Police for DeKalb County Public Safety for DeKalb County Schools, and Major Robinson will give his from the community perspective of DeKalb. And I know you all have a litany of stories that you can tell and share with us, but we don't have enough time tonight, but just some of those things that stand out so that we can have an idea of what some of the violence that you're having to deal with on a regular basis. And I know your jobs are tough, and we appreciate everything you do. And I want to say that every night, every day, I pray for all police officers who are doing the right thing, because you all need to be covered. So we'll start with Chief Gober, and then we'll go over to Major Robinson. And then once we finish with this, we have some questions in the box, Ms. Coward, if we want to answer questions, but we'll go through these, the participants first, and then we'll come back and look at any questions. Chief Gober.
Well, thank you, Dr. Morley, for the opportunity to speak at this wonderful event. And I'd like to say thank you to our interim superintendent, Dr. Tinsley, for having me on. First, I want to echo all the sentiments that we've heard from our great academic leaders, all the principals. Everything that they've been seeing, we've seen here with the police department and public safety. I will touch on something that they said about the teachers and the stress and the tenseness. Actually, I'm seeing that in my officers also. We're taking their mental wellness very seriously, because we've seen in law enforcement over the last few years, it's been a crisis in law enforcement with officers suffering from depression and wellness, because most people take that job to do good, right? They take the job to help, but sometimes the stress gets overwhelmed. And we've had a shortage in law enforcement across the nation. I'm sure Major Robinson will talk about the DeKalb police shortages. We have shortages. Every police department around, there's a labor shortage. And we're not exempt from that. And so what happens is you have officers that want to help, and they take the job as a school resource officer because they love kids and they want to make a difference. And that's why they take the job, right? And when they see these fights and these stressful situations with our young people, it takes a toll on them. And we're seeing that, but we're actually getting them training, and we've gotten them training in everything from crisis intervention to de-escalation. And so I would say the conflicts we've seen, definitely they start in the community, usually over social media or something of that fact. And then when we talk to the kids, the principals are right. They don't know how to resolve conflict. They don't talk. They don't know how to talk, and they don't know how to express themselves. And we've also seen an uptick in weapons. We all know that Georgia legislature has, and the governor has made it legal for anybody to carry a weapon without a permit. We can't even ask for a permit or a license. If somebody comes, we can just ask them to leave. And so we've seen an increase in weapons and our kids getting weapons. And we talked to our kids, and we actually had a kid tell us today that they are being able to mail out and order certain parts of guns and put them together. And they're actually putting guns together because as long as they order them in separate parts, they can come and they're not considered a gun because it's not a whole. So those are the things that we're fighting against. We're always fighting against gangs, but we're fighting against kids that don't feel heard and they don't feel understood and they don't know how to express their frustrations, and so they come out fighting. And later on, I'll let Major Robinson talk. I'll tell you some of the great initiatives that we're doing here at the DeKalb School Police to make sure that we try to help our best to get our kids on the right track from our perspective.
Chief Gober, do you have any statistics that you can share with us, local or national, anything?
Yes, ma'am. I have some statistics.
And while you're putting that together, so I want to say that we checked back in the early September, and we're looking at African-American children that had been murdered in the United States. And as of September, beginning of September, my daughter checked, who's a chief psychologist, and there were over 930 that had been murdered. These are teenagers. These weren't adults, and these were children basically, because until they actually able 21 over and go out on their own, they're still our children. And so when we begin to look at that, and as Chief Gober was talking about conflict, them resolving conflict, and when I spoke with the reporter from WXIA, Child 11 Alive, and we're talking about conflict. And what I've learned over the years, I should do conflict resolution training. All conflict can't be resolved, but how do we manage the conflict? And so I think that we have to get to how do we manage the different things that are going on? How do we manage conflict? There's no more talking. The first thing is pull out a gun. Is my gun bigger than your gun? And so how do we manage conflicts? So when we come back and look at some of the things that are being done in the district, some of the things that are being done through family community engagement, some of the things that are being done, and some of the recommendations that parents and Chief Gober and everybody else has. I'm gonna say one more thing and I'm gonna let you come on back in. And so when we also talk about children not feeling that they're being heard, and one of the parents did talk about, you know, we have to listen. It can't be all punitive all the time. Most of our children just want to know somebody loves them. And Dr. Stiegel talked about hugging them, and they took that away. And we do. There's a thing called skin hunger. All of us have it. There's a difference when you touch someone on them. And sometimes it can be that much. But we got to have parents not saying, don't touch my child. Don't do anything to my child. And so we're going to talk about some of that. But how do we hug a child? How do we help that child to feel as if he or she is worthy and say it to them? So we'll talk about that. Chief, you want to pull up some of those statistics?
Yes, ma'am. I have some statistics here that can tell you. These are district-wide statistics. And then when I talk about weapons, these are going to be not only guns, but these are going to be airsoft guns. These are going to be knives, and these are going to be tasers and brass knuckles. So far this year, we've got 72 weapons reported in our school district. This is district-wide. That's been reported through public safety. We've had 352 violent incidents in the school district. And those 352 violent incidents would be anything from a fight, which is afraid, assault, battery, disorderly conduct, and unruly juveniles acting in a violent or tumultuous manner. We've had 352 of those incidents thus far, and it's November. And that's district-wide. Now I can give you some statistics if you would like, for schools in District 7, if you would like me to break them down.
That would be great, if you don't mind.
All right. So the weapon incidents that we have in District 7, we'll start with the middle schools. Bethune Middle School, we've had one weapon. Middle Grove Middle School, we've had one weapon. And Redan Middle School, we've had one weapon. High schools, Clarkston, we've had 2. Lithonia, we've had 2. Redan High School, we've had 2. Eagle Woods, we've had none. Violent incident reports. Bethune Middle School, we've had 4. Middle Grove Middle School, we've had 14. Redan Middle School, we've had 7. Clarkston High School, we've had 3. Lithonia High School, we've had 19. Redan High School, we've had 6. And Eagle Woods High School, we had 13. And these are coming from the police department. So what that means is these are violent incidents in which the SRO had to intervene and there was a police report generated.
Wow. Thank you so much for sharing that, Chief Gober. So that shows that this conversation truly has to be a courageous one. This conversation surely has to be not only a courageous conversation, but there's have to be some courageous actions. And I want to thank Dr. Tinsley again, because I tell you, if it weren't for Dr. Tinsley, we wouldn't be able to pull this together. Dr. Tinsley has been a part of these courageous conversations. I believe we've been doing this for about 7 years, and she's been the one. I want to give her a round of applause because she's just pushed this forward, the mental health piece, the social emotional piece, Ms. Marcia Coward, and we're going to talk about them and give them some more kudos toward the end. But it just dawned on me how long that we've been dealing with some of this and trying to get this together. And we're finally to a point where Dr. Tinsley said, yes, let's pull these people together. Ms. Coward said, yes, I'm in there. And her staff, all these people coming together, all of you on the staff with Dr. Tinsley. So I just want to thank her again. Thank you so much, Chief Gober. We'll come back to you about some of the things that you're doing, all these exciting things I'm waiting to hear about. And so we're going to go to Major Robinson. Major Robinson, thank you so much for joining us. If you can share with us some of the things that you're noticing, and as far as the crime, and you're at even a larger, because you're in DeKalb County, we're the district, we're a microcosm of the macrocosm. And so can you please share with us some of the things that you have observed?
Yes, ma'am. First of all, thank you for inviting me. I'm glad to be here, and to all the educators here. I was an educator prior to this career, and I understand some of the problems that you're going through. Those problems have increased over the years. I'll say this, I've been with the department for 20 years now, and I've seen some changes. Just like, I'm going to echo some of the things that some other folks have said, especially Chief Gober, is that, what we're seeing is children with conflict resolution skill issues, anger management issues. Social media has picked up. We noticed during COVID, when everyone was quarantined, people on social media with Twitter fingers, causing beefs. And now that they're able to get in person and see each other, they're trying to resolve those beefs in person, and everybody's trying to videotape it. So some of those issues for us have gotten worse just with the proliferation of guns. A lot of the car break-ins and burglaries we're seeing is these kids are going to look for weapons, to protect themselves or to use them against somebody else. We have a lot of people who leave weapons unsecure in their vehicles, and it's easy for these kids to get to them. And, when I started in 2002, you didn't see a lot of kids going through cars with weapons on them already. Now we got Ring video and things of that nature, and victims are going outside, seeing somebody go in their car, and they're going out to gunshots. These kids are shooting first and then asking questions later. So, I'm not going to sit here and say that it's a hopeless cause. Obviously we're going to speak about some remedies. We do have some great things going on with the police department, where we're partnering with other entities within the county. We're very proud to say some of our programs are doing very well, and I've seen them firsthand, especially here in South Precinct. So I'm looking forward to continuing working with different entities within the government.
Thank you so much. And we're going to come back to you, Major, for you to be able to share some of those exciting things. So what we want to be able to do, as we're looking for some action tonight, some steps. How can we take and pull those together so everybody knows what's going on? It used to be said, don't let your left hand know what the right hand know all the time as you're doing things, but we need to let the left and the right hand know. We need to let all hands know, all hands on deck, so that we can come together and be able to work in a concerted effort. We can work as corporately and be able to work as a partner, partners coming together, home, family, school, and community. Thank you so much, Major. We'll be back to you in a few minutes. And then we're going to go once. Yes.
Dr. Morley, if I can interrupt for a minute.
Surely.
I'd like to acknowledge one of our board members that has joined us, Ms. Deirdre Pierce, and just wanting to let everyone know that she is on the call. Thank you so much, Ms. Pierce, for joining us.
You're welcome. Thank you.
And also, I would like to acknowledge that we have had CEO Michael Thurman to join us as well. So I don't know if at this time, Dr. Morley, it would be appropriate for Mr. Thurman to maybe share a little bit to kind of catch him up with the conversation so that he knows what we're talking about. But we know that he is definitely an advocate for students, for families, and for doing what's right for those in the community. So Mr. Thurman, please, if you'd like to bring greetings or say anything to the audience, this would be your time.
Good evening, Madam Superintendent. And I enjoy seeing that so much. To say, Superintendent Tinsley, Dr. Morley, thank you for your vision that brings this courageous conversation. I think you and I have been having courageous conversations for about a decade now.
Yes.
And I appreciate that. And of course, Ms. Pierce and other board members and parents and Chief Goldberg, thank you for your leadership. Major Robinson, thank you for all you do for us at South Precinct. I just want to encourage you all, the people on this call, first to acknowledge how wonderful it is that you can come together and have an honest conversation about the challenges, but more importantly, as Dr. Morley points out, we're going to get to talking about the opportunities. And just to let you all know, one, I love the DeKalb County School District. It's always will have a place in my heart that's soft. And whatever we can do at the DeKalb County government to support the leadership of Dr. Morley, Dr. Tinsley, the school board, you know that you got a friend at the CEO's office. So that's just it, Dr. Morley. Thank you for inviting Major Robinson, a brilliant young man who's doing great things to keep DeKalb County safe. He'll share with you some of the progress we're making, but just thank you all for loving and educating our children. And I tell people, and I'll stop, you know, being CEO is okay, but my best days were at DeKalb County when Dr. Tinsley and Dr. Morley, y'all just embraced me and taught me how to be a superintendent. So thank you.
Thank you, Mr. Thurman. Thank you for coming by, because it's important. We have to be able to have the CEO as a part of whatever we're doing. And that was one of the things I said to my fellow board member who was very concerned. And I said, we can't do it by ourselves. And so here we are. And when we had that conversation, I really had not thought about it, but you know, as God puts things out there for us and to say, we've got to have the CEO, we've got to have the major, we've got to have everybody a part of this, and not just for the money, but for putting our heads together and him to be able to have a say, because you're running the county and, you know, Dr. Tinsley runs the district and the board, you know, just governs the superintendent. That's all we basically do. We don't run anything really, but the bottom line comes down to, and the parents run their homes, or supposed to, so we're going to get back to that too, and then making sure that those people in place are doing the things, and then the pastors are running the churches, and so we'll do all those things that need to be done. We thank you so much, CEO Thurman, for coming by. Dr. Tinsley, you want to say anything else before we go on to the next area? And then we'll take, we have some comments, people would raise hands, and we'll have Ms. Coward to be able to acknowledge them. Do you want to say anything else, Dr. Tinsley?
Thank you, Dr. Morley. No, I just think that it's important that we're having these conversations and we are focusing on not just what we are seeing in the schools, but also why we're seeing them. Because I think that's a big piece of it. I know we have some people here. I know we have some persons with the media that have joined us. I think that we have to make sure that while we hear startling data that is presented about incidents and things that happen in schools, we also have to understand, and I love the fact that it was highlighted, that our students are under stress, our parents are under stress, our staff members are under stress. And we have to look at why some of the things are happening that we're seeing. And I think that's really important. You know, why are students feeling like they have to handle conflict the way that they're handling them in the school? Why are they doing that? Why do they feel like coming to school to have altercations is safer than being in the street? Why do they feel like, you know, the only way to resolve conflict is through violence? What happened to talking it out? What happened to conflict resolution? And so those are the things that we have to focus on and make sure that we're paying attention to when we provide those wraparound services. And I'm so glad that Ms. Denise Revels is on the call listening. She is supporting us through the Director of Wraparound Services, and has some great ideas, wonderful things that will be coming out of her shop to not only look at educating the student from the academic end, but looking at the whole child and the whole family. So I think we're ready to move forward, Dr. Morley.
Thank you so much, Dr. Tinsley. And, as we move forward, and Dr. Tinsley, as you were asking the questions, one of the questions that I wrote down is that what makes our children believe that they are so unsafe that they have to resort to carry weapons? And so I think we can't answer it just from the school. It's going to have to be the parents. We're going to have to ask those questions too. The community, the police chiefs, everyone's going to, CEO Thurman's going to have to ask, the principal, the teachers, everyone, the regional superintendents, and thank them for being on here also, because it is a village. Everybody's a part of this village. As a licensed family therapist, I believe in the system. Marcus Garvey once said, if you hurt the nose, the eye cries. I don't work with children unless parents are involved, because if there's going to be change, the entire system has to change. If there's going to be growth, the entire system has to be grown. We don't blame anybody. We're not here to blame parents. We're not going to blame the school. We're not going to blame the police officer. We're not going to blame the church. We're not going to blame anyone. But the bottom line comes down to everyone bears some responsibility in what's going on. We're going to move forward. We're going to ask our Pastor Carlton Moore from the church in Clarkson, from the First Baptist Church in Clarkson, to come forth and to say some of the things that he is seeing as far as violence. And then I'm going to go back to Ms. Coward and ask her to be able to, because we have comments sitting there. I want people to have an opportunity to say something. Pastor Carlton Moore, do you mind coming forth now? And just some of the things that you're seeing with violence in the church, because people think that you come to church, everything is all right. Violence is in the church too. The devil is wherever he can be. And he doesn't hold any barriers, and he holds no hostages. Pastor Moore?
Yes, thank you, Dr. Morley, and welcome, and hello to everyone else who's on this Zoom tonight. We see it throughout our community, throughout our society, that violence has become a way. It is pretty bad that when you have to have active shooters response and training in your church. That's on your school, but we have to have it in our church. Well, Sunday morning, we had to carve out a section of time to teach our congregation how to respond to an active shooter. So if we know that it is happening in our house of worship, we know that it's happening in our schools, is that we have a society issue. And I believe one of our largest society issues, and one thing that we're discovering, is there's a breakdown in our homes. And that's not pointing fingers at parents or anyone else, but it's the reality is that sometimes we want to make the institution more responsible for the training of our children than being parents. Now, in broken homes, we know that statistics have shown that we have a lot of one-parent homes. And so now this is where the community at large comes in to offer help. One thing we have done, I'm a part of DeKalb Christian Pastor Alliance. And within that group, we have a group of pastors who is working with Young Life, where we're taking mentors and going into our various schools and really just having our presence there to sort of make a difference. And we're also working, Clarkson First Baptist Church, we're working with Dr. LaMille over at Clarkson High School, where we actually come in and have teacher appreciation in order to bring about some stress relief. And also we help fund some of the auxiliaries to help them out. But our presence is gonna make the difference. Just walking the hallway, just a lot of it is seeing male presence. And I hold our males accountable at our churches that until we get involved and want to walk the halls, give an hour a day. And most of the principals are receptive that if we have passed the background check, that we can go in, walk the hallway, and sometimes just the male presence make a difference in the atmosphere. And so that's why what we're trying to do, make that difference by just being present And we have to get back to what scripture said, train up a child. So training is sort of gone by the wayside, and they're training themselves, and how they're training themselves is on TikTok, Facebook, whatever social media outlet they have, and they're training each other rather than us taking the lead and training them in how to navigate this thing we call life.
Thank you so much, Pastor. We're going to come back to you again with another suggestion. Did the two students come on, Ms. Howard? Do we have any students?
I didn't see them, Dr. Morley.
Okay. Well, we'll move forward. I see that you have some people that are in the chat, anything, and someone has a raised hand. And it's Dinka, I think the hand has been raised for quite some time. You want to handle that? Ms. Coward, move for those people, please.
Mr. Dinka is one of our parents, and I know he had his hand raised, I think, since the beginning of the meeting. Is there anything that you wanted to say, Mr. Dinka?
Yes, can you hear me?
Yes.
Yes, first of all, I would like to express my appreciation to DeKalb County School District. I'm a parent of 3 children at the district. One goes to DECA, 9th grader. The other one is at Freedom Middle, 7th grader. The third one is a 3rd grader at Indian Creek Elementary. What I wanted to mention, I didn't want to live without mentioning this about the violence thing, about the gap between immigrant children and the school system, because I didn't experience hardship in DeKalb County School District, but we moved from a neighboring school district about a year ago. And one of my children, who is now 9th grader at DeKalb Early College, he suffered bullying and physical abuse in the school system where we used to be. So that took us a lot of suffering as a family, and he had a suicidal ideation because of what he went through. And it took us like 9 months therapy with psychiatrists to bring him back to life. And thanks to the school district and thanks to God, we came here and he recovered, and now he is in a good condition right now compared to the previous experience. What I wanted to mention is at DeKalb, we are really very happy, and I wanted to mention some points that I believe is very important. I am a member of Ethiopian Community Association here in Atlanta, and one of our members, who is a board member of the community, works for the district as Adeda Gife. She's an instrumental person to connect the community and the school district. The police chief and everybody, the police department, and the district used to come to our community and help us to understand how it works. And this district is very exclusive for me. I've been to different states. DeKalb County School District is something else. I'm not really exaggerating. We are very happy. My kids feel protected and successful. We are on the avenue to success. And I wanted to express my appreciation. But there would be a gap between immigrants and the school system. While the educators are working hard, sometimes there are miscommunications and misunderstandings because of cultural conflicts, cultural barriers, and a lot of things. So we would work with the parent as a district. You are doing it already. So as parents, we have to also prepare ourselves to relevantly communicate with the educators and appreciate what they do. Thank you so much.
Awesome. Thank you, Mr. Dinka.
Thank you so much.
And just know that's a part of the work that we started as a part of the Family and Community Empowerment Department, along with Ms. Revels, and Dr. Tinsley will be the new person that will be coming out to your community center to continue the work that we've started with the community. So thank you for sharing all of that good news with us. There are 2 points in the chat, Dr. Tinsley. One, I think Pastor Moore has addressed, how can church youth group leaders help our children? And then the other one is for Chief Goldberg to clarify the governor's right to carry. Does that law exclude? Well, I think she says the governor's right to carry law does not exclude schools. In other words, they can carry weapons to schools. Is that what you said?
No, that's not what I said.
Okay.
What I was saying is, now that the governor's law is went into effect and you don't need a concealed carry permit or you don't need a gun permit to carry a weapon, if somebody visits our schools and they come in our school with a gun on their side and they have a weapon on their side, all that we can do is ask them to return to the car with the weapon. We can't even ask them for identification. So that's not even they've made it clear, the courts have made it clear that them having possession of a gun does not relegate to probable cause for us even to ask if they're, to ID them, to find out who they are. All we can do is ask them to return the car. We can't ask for a gun permit, and we ask them to go return the weapon to the car and secure the car before they enter the school. That's it. We can't charge them for entering the school with a gun now.
Got it. Thank you for the clarification. And then the other question was for you, Pastor Moore, is what can youth groups do, youth group leaders do to help our children?
Let me rephrase that. What can we do to get parents to bring them?
I like that.
And if I can't get you to bring them to church to what we're offering, we can't do a thing. And so now we don't know who parenting, because I have parents who come to church, leave the kids at home and say they didn't want to get up. So I can't do anything if they're at home. So until we engage fully, when I was growing up, I didn't have a choice.
Sure didn't.
If my parents had to drag me, I came. Now I go into a youth class at church, and we have 3 that showed up when we know we have 25. And where are the rest of them? At home. What they doing? They're on their game. They didn't want to stop. So we are fighting this battle where parents have to become responsible for getting them to what we're offering. We can't go to every parent home. So when we have our gathering, if the parent would bring them, then we could do a lot. We're doing, we've had several training where we used to do late night basketball before COVID, where we were bringing in employers who was teaching them how to dress and how to prepare resumes to be employed. So we were doing these things, but the only way it's effective is the parents bring them to it.
Awesome. Well, those were the only 2 questions that we had in the chat, Dr. Tinsley and Dr. Morley.
Thank you. Great questions. Great questions.
Yeah, that was a great answer too, Pastor Moore, because you're right. And it used to be when we were coming up, you didn't have a choice about going to church. And one of the things that I've noticed too is that parents ask children, will you take out the trash that they help fill up? Will you wash the dishes? And I used to be a dean in the high school. And I remember when teachers would bring children to me and they would say that they were disrespectful and that they did not do what they told them to do. I said, well, what did you say? And they said, I asked them, would they go sit down? And I don't think that we recognize, and I had some teachers finally realize, you giving them a choice. Will you go? Will you means will you go sit down? The child says, no, I won't. I won't do it. That you gave them a choice. And so sometimes we're the only species that God put here that will be in the house with parents, sometimes too old, 30, 40, 50, 60, they still live with the mom and the daddy. But the reality is at a certain age, we have to be able to get those children out and prepare them to be adults so they can go on their own. You know, the birds, when their wings get strong enough, the mama and the daddy kick them out the nest and they fly on their own. You see the dogs on the street hanging by themselves, the cats too. Nobody's out there leading them. They're not with mom and daddy, anybody else. The bears carry them along a little longer. But the reality is there's a reason why children have parents, and parents are so important. Parents are so important into the overall development of children. My dissertation was on parent involvement in schools and success of children. It's so important how we be able to do that. Dr. Tins, you want to say anything before we go to the questions that we have here? I think you're okay. You are
okay. There we are. I'm on mute. I think this is great discussion. One of the things that I think it's important to highlight as we are talking now and before we get ready to go into the next section rather, is, you know, how can we start talking about the right conversation? How can we have the right conversation? CEO Thurman started talking a little bit about it, you know, the fact that we're here and we're taking on this task, but the conversations have to continue. This courageous conversation will be over in an hour. And so once it's over, how do we continue to make sure that we have those conversations? Pastor Moore talked a little bit about it, and he said, you know, we're doing things working with the students, but the students are at home on their computers, which leads us to a topic. And this is one that I talk about quite frequently: social media. How is social media playing a part in all that we just talked about? I was in a school today and speaking with an administrator, and I asked him about an event that happened at the school. And I said, tell me, you know, what did the student, because I do believe that it's important to talk to the students. One of the parents said that earlier. Talk to the students and ask them why. Why are you doing these things? And the principal shared with me, they're doing this because it gives them fame. Social media, TikTok. They brag about being able to do this. They brag about fights. There are social media channels out there that where you post the fight and you post it and you get so many likes. And that gives you what we used to say in our day, cool points. That's a problem. That is a problem because fights are dangerous. Even when you are what they call play fighting or play boxing, someone can be hurt. And so we have to continue to talk through our counselors, through our social workers, building those relationships, mentors, community partners, to help our students to understand that that is not a good thing. We also, as the parent talked about earlier, we have to look at our disciplinary consequences as well, because we have to make sure that students understand that it's not acceptable and it won't be tolerated. Because again, someone could be seriously hurt. We've had instances in years past where something that started off very innocently led to something that turned out to be pretty bad. So I just think that it's important as we talk about that now, you know, we talk about social media challenges, and then let's not even start talking about cyberbullying and what happens. In a session that we held, I don't want to use the word listening session, but a safety talk that we had at one of the high schools this week. It was very insightful. The students talked a lot to us about their social media platforms. They talked to us about why they're on the social media devices so much. And I'll share with you that many of them shared that they are on there because they don't feel that they can talk to the adults. They feel like their peer groups, the communication that they're having with sometimes strangers that they meet on social media. They feel that they're supported more than they are when they're interacting with their friends, their family members, and unfortunately, sometimes with the staff in the school. I did see something pop up in the chat, and I do think you're right. Students want acceptance, and they're looking for it. And unfortunately, they will go wherever they have to go to get that acceptance.
Thank you so much, Dr. Tinsley. You're correct. You know, that's that self-esteem issue. And we have some great parents doing some great things, and we won't have time to really tonight, but the parents will get a chance to be able to say the things that they believe can and that they're willing to do. And this is going to be, these are just a step, some of the steps of what we're looking at for tonight. It is bigger and we're getting there. But we have great parents. We do. And thank you, Mr. Dinka, for talking about the school and talking about what's going on with your son. You know, when you have a child who's being bullied, and so we have to not only deal with the child who's being bullied, we have to deal with the bullier. So both have some things that have to be rectified and that we have to work with. And I'm so glad that even though your child has suicidal ideations, that you all sought the help. There's help out here, and we want to be able to bring it all together so that you all can see where's the help in the community. So we're going to go back around and we're going to ask a couple of things that are being done. I know we're running out of time because there's a couple other things we're going to do, but we're going to go back around. There's some questions I want to ask, and I want you all to think about it. There's a question on an iPhone. I can't see Ms. Coward. Before we go into the next session, someone with an iPhone has a hand raised.
Oh, the hand raised. It says iPhone 3. with a hand
Hello,
raised.
yes. Hello, good evening, everyone, and thank you for allowing us to have this meeting with you all. And I can, waste time calling everybody's name. Y'all all, like, really, I appreciate what you all doing here. And I have like a little concern to share. Not only, like, I don't want to take much time, as a suggestion, like for us, especially me, and as my brother that just talked earlier, from the Ethiopian guy, and I'm Ethiopian too. For us, for not only Ethiopian, anybody who's a foreigner, like, we have a language barrier. We have, like, not knowing our rights. We have those kind of problem for us to say something or to do something. So what I'm suggesting, like me, like us with communication, that's what we need. Communication, us with the teacher, student with us, student with their teacher. There's a communication shortage. There's a communication problem. That problem is like sometimes could be from not knowing what to do, not knowing how to do, from us or from the teacher being busy. I really appreciate those teacher working hard with 20 plus students with different kind of behavior, comes in from different background. Some has different, we all different colors and different issue, different religion, different sex. All we comes together like that.
Thank you so much. Thank you for calling in. And most certainly we have interpreters. We're doing what we can. And I invite you, and I know Dr. Tinsley does at any time, to be a part of the conversation. The only way that we're going to be able to do that is effective, respectful communication, doing what we're doing tonight, listening. We don't have, it would be great if we can carry this on for 24 hours, but we can't. And so as we go through this, but this is not the end, because at the end of this, I'm going to tell you what the next step is going to be. But what I'd like to do is to be able to take it to the next section here. There's some questions, and I'm going to give, when we kind of circle back around to the parents, to the law enforcement, to the pastors, to the community, to the educators. I want you to think about who's responsible and who should be held accountable. Okay, who's responsible, who should be held accountable? And then I want you to think about what can you and we, so what we want to do is point fingers, but there's always one thumb and some three coming back at us. What can you do? And what are we willing to do in order to combat the violence in our homes, our schools, and our communities? That's question number 2. So number 1 is who's responsible, who's accountable? Number 2 is what can we do? And this will give those people a chance to say some of the positive things that are going on. What are you willing to do? Because see, there's a lot that you can do. When I'm working with couples and they're breaking up, and I say, well, what can you do to help save this marriage or save this relationship? They'll say, I can. But the next step is, are you willing to do it? And that goes back to what Pastor Moore was saying. We can help your kids, but are you willing to bring them where we are? We can't come out to every household and be able to help your children. So what can and what are you willing you do in order to be able to impact violence in our homes, our schools, and our community? And the last question is, so we're coming back around to you all. Dr. Tinsley and I had a conversation about this. Is there any cost too much or too large to pay in order for us to guarantee the safety of our children, our families, our homes, and our communities? Is there any cost too much or too large to pay in order for us to guarantee the safety of our children, our families, our homes, and our communities? So as I come back around to you all, the participants, think about those 3 questions. And then if you have 2, I know we're running out of time. If you have 2 suggestions, we're taking this down, it's being recorded, because we're going to need it at the next step that we're going to take after this is all over. So let's go back to the parents. Can we go back to the parents? And we had, I don't know whether Ms. Durante, Crystal Durante is still on.
So a big thing is our gun laws or lack thereof. I don't know what we can do. Like, can we boycott, veto? Did we all vote? Like, that's an issue when we're complaining about things, but we're not using our vote as our voice. Our zip code should not determine our potential for educational success, nor should it determine the level of protection we get from the greater community, our law enforcement, the public safety department. So in regards to your, is there a price too large? No, there's absolutely not. I think a lot of the issues are geared around not having enough security or, you know, men on guard, which sounds terrible to have to put that term in our schools, but that's what's needed. Are there metal detectors? Are there, you know, security walking around all of the schools and high schools and middle schools in particular? So I think that's, you know, where we can start if at all possible.
Okay, awesome. Thank you so much. So let's go to Mr. Richard Green and his wife. They gave some things they want to talk about, and they talked about the fights and the concerns for those, the jumping and the like. Are the Greens still on?
Yes, I'm here. Can you guys hear me?
Yes.
Okay. Yeah, sorry, we're on the way to a function here, but I'll be brief. I think what can be done, I think the main issue of all of the issues, it goes back to leadership is what I believe. And all of DeKalb County is a really good school district, but there are some problem spots, some spots that have extreme issues. And I think that those should be looked at first. For the moral aspect of it, especially when it comes to fights and things like that, because if somebody gets really hurt or God forbid something fatal happens and we knew about it and didn't take the steps to rectify the leadership there, then morally, we would feel bad about it. But I say leadership because the leader is the one, like when you're a parent in your home, and we know as having 3 kids, if we say no TV after 8 o'clock, they're going to see if you really mean it. 8:30, they're watching television still, and then now if you don't do anything about that, you're not setting a proper boundary. Now they feel they can do it at 8:30 now. Now they feel they can do it at 9. So, and like another, I forgot who said it. Lots of great points here tonight, but these are kids. So, we don't want to fight aggression with aggression, but with great leadership, we're able to have a firm hand and also yet have a loving hand as well. And part of having a loving hand comes from I heard that on this conversation, a lot of the kids, they don't trust the leadership, or they don't want to come and talk. They don't want to speak about things. A lot of the parents have lost trust too, because they say something and nothing happens. So they just say, you know what, let's just get through this school year, or they'll change schools, which leaves the original problem unrectified and it's still there for everybody else. So I say just starting with the most extreme cases, especially where health and safety is a concern and the kids need to feel safe at school. We can, there's a lot of really great people here on this chat, and we can put our heads together and figure out what we're going to do about community. We can figure out what we're going to do about anything. I'm sure when we organize and mobilize like we are now, there's nothing that we can't do. So, but for me personally, I'm very disturbed about the violence and the lack of accountability from the students, and also from some of the leaders. And there's great principals on here, and a lot of the good schools, you guys should be commended, because this is a hard job. It really is. It's a hard job. It's a taxing job. And people are mentally and emotionally, whether it's through COVID, so it's hard, it's stressful. So I want to commend everybody that's doing great, but, back to the leadership for the problem areas, they're the ones that can provide trust. The kids, they're not going to come talk to anybody if they don't trust them. Neither are the parents. Trust needs to be established as well, and that comes through leadership as well. It all boils back to leadership, enforcing, just leadership. Yeah. So things that I would like to do. I know I don't want to talk too long, and but things that I think are good, my wife and I both think are good, is positive reinforcement for the kids too, because not all the kids are problem kids. They're really, really good students all throughout DeKalb County. And what I've seen is a lot of times the most problem kids, they get most of the attention, they get most of the resources. But if you're doing good, do you get a pat on the back? Do you a hug? Yeah, as my wife says. So one thing that we've seen work before and we're putting together now is programs like a honor roll carnival. If you've made honor roll, and we have this big thing where we have this big carnival. It could be held anywhere. We could get celebrities to come out and speak, and it's a big thing to reward good behavior throughout the school year. I think that's just as important, and that comes from the loving hand side of leadership, and not the crash, the crash that. Also, even smaller things like if you do good at certain things, there has to be a reward. Maybe we can get them free tickets to Six Flags or something. Anything, is great to reward good behavior as well. And I think that for now, I think those are the two main issues that we're having, aside from accountability, because nothing loses trust faster than trying to do something and nothing happens.
Right.
It's just the same. Then there has to be accountability in order to build trust.
Right.
And without trust, nobody's going to listen to us or anything at all. They're going to just do whatever they're going to do.
Well, Mr. Green, Ms. Green, we're gonna most certainly keep you, because there's gonna be a part that you probably at the end, but I'm gonna ask of you all. And so I think that you all will be great to be a part of that. Thank you all so much for being a part of this. Thank you for your comments. And Ms. Durante, thank you for your comments. This is what we need. So I'm gonna go quickly to Latasha, and then we're gonna go on to Ms. Harris and see if they have a couple of things. And don't forget the questions. Who's responsible, and who should be held accountable, and what can you do, what we're doing. So that's what we're talking about. We're coming up with some steps that we have. And remember, this is being recorded, but it's not going to go on deaf ears. Dr. Tinsley, who is the leader here, is listening to all of this. She has the people in place. We have regionals, we have principals, we have teachers, we have parents, we have all the people who need to be a part of this potpourri of good things happening for our children in the cab. And then the last question, is there any cost too much or too large to pay in order for us to guarantee the safety of our children and families and our homes and communities? So is Ms. Latasha, are you still on?
Yes, I am.
Okay.
So as far as who's responsible, we're all responsible. Who's accountable? We all should be held accountable. Parents, teachers, staff, police, students, community members. There's no price that's too big to pay for the future. I like to tell, I'm 44 years old. I like to tell people, our elders are getting ready to sit down. These children are on our watch now. So we are responsible for what they do. Now, I'll give you an example of my son. My son is an honor student. And so he wasn't necessarily accepted so much at his school. And he had issues coming into Bethune, and he had been attacked in fights and stuff like that. And so there was a parent that I did speak with, and we came together, and we as parents connected more than I connected to the staff. And so I feel like that's a problem. I hear so much of everybody saying, pointing fingers. Who's this? Everybody, or they're talking about themselves.
Right.
The staff is tired. The parent is tired. Let's try some empathy. Let's try some empathy.
Okay.
So with the empathy, me as a parent, consider you as a teacher. You as a teacher, consider me as a parent. Everybody needs to have some empathy for the other in order to understand. So I think the lack of communication, a lot of people made some beautiful points. all the points I agree with. The lack of communication is there, and the finger pointing needs to stop.
Yeah.
So I think that as far as to communicate, we should have like weekly newsletters sent home, you know, explaining the temperature of the school for the week. Parents don't know what's going on unless you tell them. But everybody want to blame the parent. Talk to the parent, and then blame them if they don't respond after you have reached out. Now, for the temperature of each grade, let them know. Like Mr. Green said, not just contacting us when they have had an issue. Contact us and let us know that they had a good week. Because I'm gonna tell you this, our loyalty is to our child. So if we keep hearing negative, we're gonna look at you a certain way. You know what I'm saying? So there has to be a balance there with being able to have constructive criticism for the child. You know, maybe the old school potlucks. Get with a restaurant, the restaurant that sell the parents food. So because it's COVID, people might not trust what people cooking out. We'll go to the restaurant and everybody can buy, and we come, let's have some fellowship, you know, partner with the parents and give, and not even just in a newsletter, giving them the temperature, give them resources, give them motivational tools, show them that you care. We're just like, we're humans. We all used to be children. So we all know, just like a child don't want to hear you just talking at them and talking at a parent or adult one on one, we worse.
And Miss Latasha,
and that's just the truth, you know.
Miss Latasha, guess what? There's a child still in all of us.
Yes.
And I want you to hang on, because
But wait, one more thing I want to say.
Okay, because I see a role
because
that
we talk about when we talk about bridging the gap. So we need to bring the old with the new. So we need to understand that this is a technological world now, and we need to learn to adapt. And so when you're talking about positive reinforcement, change their views and their outlooks. All of these children love these games. Okay, find the resources to put them in coding classes. I have my son in Roblox coding classes. He loves the computer. He loves all of this. He will forget to eat. He will forget to drink. He will forget to do everything when he's on the computer. You know, so I have to make that balance and make that experience positive versus him looking at YouTube and seeing some stuff he ain't supposed to see, or, you know, stuff like that. So you have to accept, you got to meet people where they are.
That's right.
You know, and you can't expect everybody to know what to do.
That's right. That's right.
You might have more knowledge than me. That person has more knowledge. So come together and teach these parents what to do.
Right. We're gonna. I have a place for you, but you're gonna have to warn it. So in a few minutes before
I'm ready for you.
Yep,
I'm ready
okay,
for you.
okay. We only have about 20 minutes left, and so. But thank you so much. I mean, I'm excited about this. You all get me excited. Thank you so much, Latasha. What's your last name, if you don't mind?
Young. Y-O-U-N-G.
Okay, that's so important and impressive. So Ms. Harris, is it Shanita Harris? Is she still on?
It's Shiante, and my video's not working. Yes,
Okay.
ma'am. I can pretty much say ditto to what's been said. In terms of Ms. Young, we all are responsible. I'm 43, and I grew up in the village, and I think we need to bring the village back. Bring the village back to how we take care of each other, take care of our kids, support each other's kids without just being our child that we birth. Still stay active, still stay involved. So responsible and accountable, we all need to be. We all need to take responsibility. We all need to. Positive opportunities. One thing I love at Princeton and at Winbrook is we have a group called Purpose Driven Dads. That's an intentional group that brings fathers together, not only in our school, but in our community, to be a part of the school. And so whether it's morning drop-offs, dismissals, walking through the schools, we have a purpose-driven dad group that gets the dads together, and it shows men in the school. And so grateful for Mr. Lamar that has spearheaded that in Winbrook as well as in Princeton. And so hope to see more of that. Hope to see more of that engagement. Like Pastor Moore said, it does mean something to see a man walk through the hallway, because some kids don't see that. Or if they see a man, they see a man with a belt in their hands. And so being intentional, showing that we actually care. And somebody older man, mind you, like of a granddaddy, and you may slow down in the hallway because here come Granddaddy Joe. So just being intentional about that. And I think we're paying the cost now for not being involved. And I think the cost is going to get greater if we don't stop what we're doing and realize that we have to be a part of how our schools and community can be better. So we can't put off on anybody else and any other cultures. We have what we need if we get involved.
Yeah. Thank you so much. I'm excited. I remember my mother back, in the 70s and 80s, she used to be in the foster grandparents program, because a lot of children don't have older people around them. As you said, they see an older person, they're going to slow down, they're going to stop. And they would go into the schools with the elementary children, and they would help them with their work. And they love that. That was that hug Dr. Stiegel talked about. That was that coming together. And so a lot of the grandparents are not there or can't be there. So how can we do some of those things like that? Excellent ideas. I most certainly thank you all. So hold on, I'm going to get through this list with these last ones, and then I'm going to give you all the charge and the challenge and say what the next thing we're going to do. So let's go to the educators. We're going to go back around, and I know time is winding down, but if y'all can bear with us here, this has been so exciting and so encouraging. And I know Dr. Tinsley is looking at this saying, wow, look at what she's been able to create, Ms. Coward, what you all have been able to create. Let's go to the educators. We're going to go back to the elementary. Dr. Stiegel, will you please share? You can answer the questions, but also the excitement of what's going on at Panola Way that you believe can help get rid of some of this violence that's going on.
Yes, ma'am. I agree. I ditto with everybody else. It is all of our responsibility. It is all of our accountability. I absolutely agree. It is not just a parent issue. It's not just a student issue, not just an educator issue. It's all of us, because these students will be our future. I wanted to share one great thing that is going on. We have a partnership now with Stafford Boxing Club and Truist Bank. Truist Bank partnered with Stafford to come to Panola Way. They're blessing 20 of our 5th grade students. They've already come and done the first part of it, blessed them with their own individual laptops, bags for the laptops to go in, made them some bags and hoodies and wristbands to wear that glow in the dark. The hoodies have glow in the dark lettering on it, so that anytime that you're in darkness, you still have some light, because let your light so shine that men might see your good work. I am so excited to have this partnership, because I believe this is God ordained. These students will be tracked all the way through until they graduate from DeKalb County schools. So we talk about the DeKalb graduate. We're talking about a minimum of 8-year commitment. They're going to track these students, their discipline, their academics, how they act at home with their parents, how are they in the community when they're being coached by different coaches in the rec departments, so that they are held accountable by the Stafford Boxing Club the entire while. And we're going to start here in this month in November, we're going to start also providing food for them. A minimum of every week, we're going to be providing boxes of food to send to these students. So these 20 families are going to be blessed like nobody's business. And I told the parents, God sometimes gives us things we didn't even ask for. We didn't pray about it, we didn't think about it, but he does above that we could ever ask or think, simply because that's how good our God is. So I am so excited about that, Dr. Morley. That's what our babies need. They need to see that we care. And the only way to really show them is to just bless them abundantly so that they can see it.
Yeah, awesome. Thank you. So all of that's going to be coming back around, and our children they need pats on the backs. They need to, instead of saying everything is wrong, and every child is not out there gang banging. Many of our children get caught up, they're just at the wrong place at the wrong time. But I always say they're at the right place. The one who shot and had the gun was in the wrong place. They shouldn't have been there with a gun. So why can't people be where they are and not worry about our children and our family members and getting shot and something happened to them? Thank you so much for sharing that, Dr. Stiegel. Let's go to Mr. Kemp. Mr. Kemp from Bethune Middle, same questions. And then what are you doing that you think can have impact the violence that's going on?
Okay, Dr. Morley, I agree again with Dr. Stiegel. It is everyone's responsibility. Everyone that's on this call, it's our responsibility to not only to answer that call to action, but to also employ others to get involved. Even if you do not have a child at school, you need to be involved in school, because again, this is your community, this is our community, and we all have we have a right to be involved in not only your child, your grandchildren, your aunt's child, your neighbor's child. Um, at Bethune Middle School, we are about building relationships, and kids don't care how much you know until they know how much you care. We've heard that often, but it's so true. My interactions, and I've asked the teachers and the staff members' interaction with the student, is to not just concern yourself with what they did wrong, but let's talk about where they're going. I would never tell a child, I'm mad at you. I tell them I may be disappointed, but let's see where you can go take that disappointment, turn to greatness. We all have a forthright to do something to make sure our kids not only have them for 6th, 7th, and 8th grade, but I want them to be ready day one when they matriculate to Towers High School. And I've always said that ready day one means when you step into the 9th grade, you're prepared to go 4 years and not 5 years in high school. That's what we're looking at. Building relationships. It entails the organization that Mary McLeod Bethune started, National Council of Negro Women. They meet at the school once a month. Great women who come in and uphold the traditions that Mary McLeod Bethune started. Also, our corporations, our partnerships with Alpha Kappa Alpha, as well as Omega Psi Phi. This year, we're going to feed 46 families with turkey hams and all the trimmings for Thanksgiving. So those things, like Dr. Stiegel said, those blessings that we can not only bring into the school, but to the community. It takes a village. I said that before, but this is one of the things that I tell the staff that, hey, the blessings that we're given, we all have degrees in that school. Let's get these kids to where they can go to the next level in their life.
Yes, thank you. Thank you so much. You know, so many exciting things. So just y'all hold on to what you're hearing, because you're going to have a chance. Y'all want to put it out there? Then I'm going to have you put it out there, but not just put it out there, bring it on back and put it all together. I'm going to move on now to Chief Gober, and then we're going to move to Major Robinson. And I know the CEO might not still be on, but that's okay. If he's there, we'll have him an opportunity. Then we'll last go to Pastor Carlton Moore, and then we'll wrap up with the last part that I want to share with you all. Chief Gober. The same
Morley,
questions.
before we go to Chief Gober, can we hear from Principal Sims?
Oh, I'm sorry, Principal Sims. Yeah, I'm sorry. Thank you. That's why all of us on here, it's not just me handling this. Principal Sims, I'm sorry.
No problem. So to answer the question, I believe that everyone is accountable. I have a mantra that says Towers Cares, and those letters in CARE stands for something. The C stands for collaboration. I'm a collaborative leader, so I love the fact that we're in this meeting together talking about our issues and how we can solve them. Earlier, after we had that major situation at Towers High School, I called together all of my community members from the churches, the mentors that are in the district, the commissioner, called on district leaders to come together so we could talk about what it is that we can do to support the students at Towers High School. That A stands for accountability in CARES. I believe that everyone is accountable. And I tell the community, my staff, my students, hold Principal Sims accountable, because I'm definitely going to hold everyone accountable to do their part. The R, like Mr. Kemp said, is for relationships. The only way we're going to get this done is getting out there and building relationships for each other. The E stands for engagement. We are trying to find ways to engage our students and our communities. And when we do all of these things, Dr. Morley, this is going to lead to the success for all of our students. So that's how that's the mantra that I lived by for the last 3 years. And so 2 things that we've done at Towers to address the violence. Out of that community meeting, I have built partnerships with the churches in my community. The Tabernacle Church, for example, Pastor Tedder comes in 2 to 3 times a week just to hang out with our kids, to build relationships with them. He's been there when we've had emergency situations, and he was able to help us mitigate and manage the problem, the conflict that was going on in the building. I can recall one incident. The students, there were some social and emotional things going on. The student, he wanted to break out and fight everybody. So Pastor Tedder he said, Miss Sims, I got him. He took him into that conference room, spoke to him. He came out, he said, Miss Sims, I'm good. We're also excited about the work that Pastor Coswell at the Covenant Church is doing for Towers High School. He has adopted Towers High School, and we are having a Towers Sunday at his church. And so our band is going to be there. Dr. Tinsley will be there, the regionals. We've invited all of our families to come out. Our band will be there, and that will give me an opportunity to reach out to my parents who may be members at that church. They don't always come to the school because they're working, but if I can get to church where they go, then I can have that conversation. So he's giving us that platform at Towers. He has also donated $1,000 to our school incentive program, our PBIS program, which stands for Positive Behavior Incentives strategies. So we've started a school store. We're giving kids points for showing good behaviors, making good decisions. And so they'll be able to go shop with those points. And so we're so grateful to Pastor Carswell for adopting Towers. He challenged Pastor Barry at the Favor Church, who's going to donate another $1,000 to our incentive program. So our kids, they're racking up those points, and they're going to be able to shop for their families during Christmas time, or anytime they want to with their points. The last thing I want to talk about is the mentoring program. On yesterday, we established our first mentoring program under my leadership at Towers High School. And I challenge every adult in my building to mentor a child. I also asked those same community members to come out to join us and to mentor students. And it was so impactful yesterday. We had Peace Baptist Church to come out, the Covenant, Tabernacle, and we loved on those children. And our children, they crave that connection. They want to talk. And so just the testimonies that we had from kids were so powerful. And at the end of the day, we had a men's talk and a ladies talk where our kids were able to ask the adults just questions about life. And you would be surprised. We have my girls, they're asking about, how do you know when you want to move in with your boyfriend? Why at 14 are you concerned about that? So we had to have real adult and mature conversations with our students, but they walked away feeling empowered, feeling that they had some guidance and that they had caring adults in our building that they can go to. So it's making a difference, and I'm just thrilled about the work.
Ms. Sims, I'm thrilled too. I'm excited as you all have more and more and more. I hear from the parents, hear from you all. I don't know whether we're all going to be able to stand by the time we hear from everybody as to what's going on. So I want you all to stay on because just a few minutes longer, because we're going to wrap this all together and pull it together. So if Sims is doing this over here, Dr. Stiegel is doing this over here, Mr. Kemp is doing this over here, we got everybody else doing, the parents are doing. So why can't we bring it all together? So hold on just a little while longer, and then we're going to tell you all how we're going to bring it all together. Thank you so much, Ms. Sims, and thanks for everything you do. Towers used to be one of my schools. As a matter of fact, I helped to get the roof on Towers. Mr. Thurman was the superintendent at that time, and so we fought to get that roof on Towers and the field out there and the track. So yeah, we'll talk later. Thank you so much. We're going to move on for time's sake to Chief Gober. Chief Gober.
Hi, I know we're short on time, so I'm just going to mention a couple of things that we've been trying to do from the law enforcement perspective. When you're talking about who's responsible. Everyone's responsible, but I wanted to make sure myself and my officers, we take the motto of extreme ownership. There's a book that I made my whole command staff read by Jocko Willink called Extreme Ownership. And that means when something happens in this district, if something happens in your school, it doesn't matter whose responsibility it is. What could you have done to resolve that issue? And that's the first thing I ask my officers and my supervisors, because I want them to be leaders. What could you have done? Don't tell me what the principal could have done or what the parent could have done. But I want to know, you need to own it. Own the issue at your school. Own it. Own it with these children. And also listening to the kids as we've tried to tell them to listen and build those relationships, those interpersonal relationships. We see that the kids want to know that these adults care, and especially police officers care. So we're like, show them that you care about them. Don't just be there to preach to them or arrest them or punitive. Show them that you care about them every day. And on that note, what we have done is we started a legacy academy through public safety. It's a police initiative, sort of like the CABS athletic program that they have, the Police Athletic League. But what we want to do is called the Legacy Academy. And we're actually going to start 3 days over December. And we're going to start with middle school boys between 7th, 8th, and 9th graders. We're going to start with 20. We're going to focus in the area of character of education. We're going to dream the impossible dream. And we're going to have physical activities to fit the real world right here. And it's going to be staffed by former principals, current teachers, and police officers. We're going to do all the staffing there. We've already partnered with Chick-fil-A, the Waffle House, that are going to be providing breakfast and lunch. School nutrition is going to be involved. And what we want to do is show these kids that we care. And this is going to be the first part of this December. First to sign up, if you it's going to be held at Clarkston High School. We've already talked to the staff at Clarkston High School, and we're going to have clergy members and other. We're going to talk. We got STEM program that is going to be involved in there. Yes, it's going to be the STEM program is going to be there. And then what we're going to do is the next run is going to be spring break, and then we're going to run it all summer. And so hopefully once this takes off, we're going to be able to do this in other regions, but we're going to start with the centralized region of Clarkston High School.
Awesome. Thank you, Chief Gober. That's awesome. Awesome. So the police going into the community coming to the police. And so it's not just the school, it's all of us working together. Thank you so much. Major Robinson, tell us some of the enlightening things and who's accountable. And is it too much for us? What cost is too much for us to be able to pay for the safety of our children, our families, and our homes? And what can you do and what we're willing to do in order to make this happen?
So first of all, as far as accountability, just forums like this are showing that we all are accountable. We understand that we have to work together to solve the problems that we're having in our schools and in our communities. I think it's a great thing that everybody here probably understands that we can't do this alone. Like as a police department, we know we can't arrest our way out of any kind of crime problems because there's root causes that come in where you all are experts at those problems, and you can help us solve those problems before it gets to a bigger problem with the police department. So accountability is, like everybody said, is for everyone. So as far as the police department, we've been doing some great things. I mean, one thing about this department is in 20 years I've been here, we have been in this community helping as much as we can. Lately we've had a reduced force, with our manpower. And we're dealing with a very high call volume, especially here at South Precinct. I mean, we deal with more calls than some small police departments do. So we do our best with what we have. Chief Ramos has been doing an outstanding job of making sure that we provide some resources, some special units. So Chief Gover did mention our PALS program, our Police Athletic League. I can't say enough about them. They're our award-winning PALS program. They just recently won an award from the Attorney General. So we did have an after dark basketball program here in South Precinct at the YMCA on Snaffering Road. The PALS program had about 140 to 200 kids come there a night, 2 nights a week. They fed them, they did workshops. They had business owners come by and hired some of them on the spot. So it gives those kids exposure to not just the basketball. Obviously, we don't want, we know every kid's not going to play basketball, but hey, we can expose them to some mentors who can get them in the right direction where they want to go. They also have mentoring programs and entrepreneurial programs with some of these water boys we've had on the exits. And I know I get complaints, I get emails, phone calls. Hey, can you get these kids off the corner? Well, the first thing I do is contact the PALS program and say, hey, we're going to have our officers go out here and reach out to this kid. I need you to come back and follow up. And they do a great job of that, giving those kids some entrepreneurial skills so they don't feel like they have to be on that corner selling. We do gaming with the cop. I think Miss Young, I think you mentioned meeting these kids where they are. So yeah, we have a program where we play video games with them. It's a way for us to bond because heck, I got 19, 18-year-old sons and both of them love video games and I used to play, but I can't play like them now. So, but it is a way for us to converse. So I had to kind of meet them where they were, playing those games. Our youth academy goes on several times a year. The youth academy is a slimmed down version of our citizens academy, where 14 to 17-year-old kids get exposed to everything the department has to offer. You can see the different units, so everybody people can understand that it's just not the patrol officers out here. They are the face of the department, but we do have other units and specialized units that may appeal to kids, and hopefully we can hire some of them one day. And of course, our community policing unit, anytime they're called, they go to the schools. Anytime they're called, they go to neighborhoods. They provide clothing. They provide food. They connect nonprofit organizations with different communities. So those kids can get the resources that they need. And ultimately, this comes down to resources. Some places get more than others. And so that's what we're trying to do, is make sure these kids have everything they need to be successful. So these kids don't have to worry about going home being hungry, and they can concentrate on their schoolwork. So those are some of the great things that we're doing right now. And I'm very proud to be a part of this department, especially the South DeKalb community, because we get a lot of love and support from you all and the greater community. So thank you for allowing us to be here.
And thank you, Major Robinson, for sharing all the wonderful things that are going on in DeKalb. And I know some of you all in here probably saying, I didn't know all this stuff was going on, but that's why it's important for us to have things like this. Again, thank you so much, Dr. Tinsley, for allowing this to take place. And Major Robinson, if Dr. Tinsley didn't allow it to take place, we wouldn't know a lot of this. So it's not over for you yet. So don't think after you go off of this tonight that it's over. There's another piece of this. We're trying to get there. I want to make sure everybody has a fair opportunity. Thank you so much. And thank you for your contribution. So hold on just a few more minutes. We are going to move on to Pastor Carlton Moore. Pastor Moore, who's responsible, who's accountable? Is there any cost too much for our children, our families, our homes, our community? And also basically looking at what can you do? What are you all willing to do? What are you all doing in order to be able to help combat some of the violence that's going on in our community?
I did over what everyone else said. There's no cost that's too great, but I'm a realist. There is a cost that's associated. And let's be real, we only go as far as our money and resources go. But we do the best we can with that which we have been entrusted to manage. So it's everyone's responsibility. One thing I feel that we need to understand, even with everybody's responsibility, I think parents have a responsibility of giving permission to be involved in their children's life, because we run into a lot of my child, but yet they call us when they get in trouble, but they don't want us to be involved before the trouble comes. So give us permission to be involved in the lives of the individual. One thing is that we have to be purpose-driven, have direction with what we want to do. So oftentimes what we've done to help as a church, we've worked with the DeKalb County PALS program. Also, we work with Young Life, where we are actually going into Clarkston High School. In this past summer, we sponsored 2 of Clarkston High School students to go to summer camp in North Carolina. Wish we could have sponsored more, but like I say, budget restraints. But those are the things that make a difference, because the impact that they have. Also, what we're doing, we offer scholarships, 2 scholarships of $500 a semester to Clarkston High School students. And as long as they stay enrolled and keep a 2.75 GPA, they get that money each semester. And so those are some things that we're trying to impact their lives. Each summer, when school get ready to return, we work with Commissioner Steve Bradshaw, along with the DeKalb County Superintendent and Dr. Morley, you were there. We gave out over 1,000 backpacks for school supply.
Right.
And create the environment where we want them to know that as a community, we're working together to help them to the best of our ability. And that's what we will continue to do, work together and make our community better by being visible and being a part and working to, and trying to get, and one thing we're struggling with is trying to get more of our fathers, our males involved. And so I think once we are able to jump that hurdle, we will do better overall.
Thank you so much, Pastor. Thank you for all that you all are doing. As I said, the church has always been the base and the basis. When we look at religion, we look at Christianity, we look at coming from a perspective of spirituality. We need that spiritual, we need that covering, we need that for in the home, in the schools, with the families. You know, once the government took prayer out of church, it seems like all the other stuff began to come in. And so if you can't do it in the school, do it at home, do it in the church, do it in the community. They can't stop you from being able to do it there. So I just thank you so very much. So a lot has been said tonight, and I believe you all. And Dr. Tinsley, I just want to say again, thank you. I want to say again, thank you to Ms. Coward, Marcia Coward and her team. But I want to wrap this up by giving a charge. And then Ms. Coward, do we have the other lady that was going to say something from the program?
No, ma'am.
Okay, so then I'll go ahead and do the charge and then tell the last thing that we're going to do. So I want to give this charge and the challenge. I want to challenge the parents. Ms. Latasha, are you still there?
I'm here.
I would like for you to be able to go to the school and ask them, what can you do and what do they need you to do? I want you to start that newspaper up for their school. And I want you to get those parents that you've talked to and help you to get that newspaper started. I want you all to take back your home. My blog last month was, who's the boss in this house? It's time for parents to stand back up. You all are great parents. You have great students. Everything starts and ends with our parents. That love, teaching them things. We've got to challenge some things. One of the things I want to say to the parents and to the community is that the schools don't belong to the DeKalb County School District, Dr. Tinsley, the board, and everybody else. It belongs to the community, belongs to the parents. You all are the owners of all of this. Ask the questions you need to know. Be able to go in there. Set up time to go in there. Go to the school and ask, what can I do? What do you need me to do? What are you willing to do? Go with the police officers, what we can do to come together and to be able to save our children. It came to me that every time there's a Black male loss or a Black female, that's 2.5 children that won't be born. So our race is declining. We've got to start standing up, speaking up, and challenging the gun law. Now we have the divisive policy where culture and race and all that can't be talked about in the schools. But you all have a say. Voting is number one, and putting the people in place. That's from the school board, superintendent, everywhere you go. The legislature, not people that are going to come in and not allow all children to be able to have an equitable education. Tell your children what to do. Establish boundaries. Reward, don't punish all the time. And let them know how much you love them. Because if they don't get the love from home, they're going to seek it somewhere else. I can't go through everything we want to do, but I want to challenge you all to be able to do that. I want to challenge the educators to be the best educators that you can be. I know you all don't get paid enough. I know sometimes it seems as if you're not heard. As parents are tired, teachers are tired, principals, everyone is going through something. But if we work together, sometimes take time out to listen. One of the things that made me a successful educator, they didn't have Prada back when I was working in the school system. They didn't have red bottoms either. But if they came in stilettos, they came in no shoes, raggedy shoes, I didn't care how they looked. If they had a weave, they had whatever. If dad had the cigar, had a big, no matter what, everybody who came in that door was important. Begin to see the importance of the children, the importance of the parents, the importance, because without the parents, we wouldn't have any children. So we have to begin to look at how we're treating people. You stand your ground in your room. Do the best for those children. And as educators, those in administration, you've got to support the teachers, the principals, and the regional schools. Dr. Tinsley, all of us, we have to support our educators. We have to let them know when stuff goes wrong that we're not going to throw them out to the pasture. That when there's something going on with them, with parents, we're working with them, that we want all of us come together. It is a partnership. It is a coalition. It's not a competition. I want to say to the police chiefs, we've got to bring Officer Friendly back. You know, sometimes when children see guns, and as you all were saying, they want to be famous, as Dr. Tinsley said. What happens is they wound up being infamous. They're in a place they don't want to be. They're in a grave. My intention was I did a poem about our children and the loss of our youth. I didn't have time to read it tonight. But the bottom line comes down to we need officers that are out there to hug those children sometimes. The teachers, the principals, everybody hug it and say, hey, you belong. When I was a dean, they would come in with dirty coats, and I was in the North. I never dissed them. I would get them aside and say, you have a washer, you have a dryer, you have washing powder. They would say, yeah, don't come in tomorrow with that dirty coat. And when they came in that next day, that coat would be spanking clean, and I didn't have to say a word. All I did was put a thumbs up. And that's the care you're talking about, Ms. Latasha. That's the care that you're talking about. That's the care that you all are talking about, Ms. Young, that you all are saying what needs to be done for our children. And so when I look at it and think about it, and Major Robinson, the same in the county. I know you all have a tough job. I know you all stressed out, stretched, and everything else. But sometimes we have to breathe. We have to make sure we take care of each other. And sometimes when I see officers, I always say to officers, and I greet them. And I believe Pastor Moore can attest to this when I was at the book bag giveaway this summer. And I said to the officer, I pray for you all every day. And it's like offering people something, you know, do you need some water? Are you okay? Thank you for what you do. Because sometimes that officer has gone through insurmountable odds. They put their lives on the line every day. They don't know whether they're going to come back home or not. And we have more people out there, those real criminals who are not afraid, gangbangers who are not afraid to take the lives of an officer, because that also believes that gives them brownie points, which at some point they'll see that it doesn't give them any kind of points that's positive. I want to challenge students that might not be on here. Listen to your parents. Listen to your teachers. Be obedient. Have boundaries. The only person you should follow is follow yourself. Walk in your own shadow. Notice that your shadow is cast forward. So if you walk in your shadow, you'll be going forward and not backwards. Love yourself. Because if you're looking for someone else to love you, it's not on the computer, it's not with that stranger, it's not anyone, it's already in you. God has endowed us with that happiness and that gift. All of you, I believe that every child can be successful. They might not get to where we think they should be, but if they can get to where they need to be, where they can be productive in society, we've got to love these children and talk to them. And I go to stores and I see them with their pants hanging down. And my daughters have said, Mom, you got to stop it. But it's not what we say, it's the how we say what we say when we say what we say. And I call them over and say, do me a favor. I'm sitting here, I'm looking over here. I do not want to see you. Will you please pull up your pants? And they always do it. They don't give me a hard time. So we have to look at what we're saying and how we treat people. And that's that love that we show them. That's what respect that we show them. Respect we show the parents. Respect we show the parents are showing the teachers. To the community. And CEO said that he'll do whatever we need in order for him to help us to do what we need to do. We're going to do it. The spiritual community, Pastor Carlton Moore asks that you all use your pulpit as a platform. I don't know whether you all saw Pastor Jamal Bryant's message the other day about the election. But if you haven't seen it, watch it. It takes bravery. It takes bravery, because if there's anyone that people are going to follow are the spiritual leaders. Our people need guidance. Our people need spiritual covering. You are the leader. You are the shepherd, and you have your flock out here. All of us have to be under that flock, and we need covering each and every day, no matter what we're doing. We need to be prayed up. We need to pray over our children, parents. We need to anoint them. We need to do whatever we need to do before they go out, before they come in. We need to pray for our parents, pray for our children, pray for our educators, pray for our pastors. because all of us come together. And if we can all do that, the challenge is tonight that I'm leaving with you all, and the charge is that when you get off of this Zoom tonight, is that you're going to decide you're going to make a step in the right direction to do something more and do something different. And I'm going to say one last thing that I'm going to turn it back over to Dr. Tinsley, and then I'll do a last segment too. What are the next steps? I'm asking you all, Dr. Tinsley, if you would please be the leader of this, that you all form a task force, a manageable task force. We can't have 100 people on it because nothing will get done. You all can decide. I'm just here. I'm just a servant leader. I'm just here to help the process take place. That task force will be spearheaded by the DeKalb County School District. It will encompass the representatives from the identified areas that were here tonight. It will encompass people from parents, students, educators, the police force, people from the community, and we will also, so those people from the community might not have any children. And if you're on this call tonight and you're saying, but I don't have any children, yes, you do. Because if something happens to Ms. Jones' child, it's just like it's your child. If Ms. Jones' child goes to jail, it's your tax money taking care of Ms. Jones' child. So the community means that. And then we want some people from the spiritual community, the religious community on this task force. I'm looking and expecting that Dr. Tinsley, we've talked about it, this task force would come together after the new year. And they will begin to spearhead that, where you all can meet, take what we've taken from here, come up with particular steps, and begin to look at, I always say a manageable number is 5 areas. If you can come up with 5 areas that you want to impact, to decrease, attack the violence, whatever it can be, then that will show that we're doing something. And I'm also asking you to focus on the things that you all have talked about. You all have been awesome. You've given some great feedback, great things. Can we pull what's going on in all the schools, what the parents have had to say, what the police, and lock it into one big tub together? And so that we're not just dealing with Panola Way, we're not just dealing with Mary McLeod Bethune, we're not just dealing with Towers. We have to deal with all 100 and something schools in the DeKalb County School District. We're not going to deal with just Ms. Young's house. We're not going to deal with Ms. Latasha. We're going to deal with everybody's house. How can we impact? And so that's pretty much what I'm asking you all to do, and that you develop a comprehensive plan of action to confront violence coming out of this task force, to confront the violence in the homes, in the schools, in the community, and most certainly making sure we have healthy and whole students, parents, officers, teachers. And don't forget now, the school just doesn't encompass the teachers and the principals and the administrators. We have secretaries. We have administrative assistants, bus drivers. Y'all know what the bus drivers get up there. I couldn't be a bus driver because I'm not going to get up that early. Food service workers, those food service workers and custodians know your children better than anybody else. So when y'all thinking about doing that, get some of those people. I'll never forget when I was over staff development in New York and I bought the head cook to be on my staff development team. And she said to me, 30-something years I've been here, no one ever asked my opinion. And that still rings with me today. Because after we got that staff development program together, she would come every meeting, every week with her pad. And she died that July. But she got to know that somebody cared about her. And she wasn't just a cook. So we need to look at the librarians, the counselors, social workers, all these people. How can we come together, this task force be formed, and we make things happen? So my question to you right now is, are you willing to accept the challenge? Are you willing to continue, not just with the courageous conversations, but are you willing to take courageous action? Thank you. Dr. Tinsley?
Thank you, Dr. Morley. This has been extremely powerful. There's so many things. We have a lot of things to do. I took copious notes. I know there are other members of my team that took notes as well. But I just want to say thank you to participants. I think I just saw one of our board members logging off, but thank you again to Mrs. Pierce. And I also want to acknowledge that Mr. Dijon DaCosta chimed in to hear some of the conversation. So I want to thank them as well as Dr. Morley for the support that they give the DeKalb County School District on a daily basis. It's with them and their support that we're able to do a lot of the things that we do in schools. As we get ready to leave each other, I just want to remind everyone on the call of a few things that I heard as major themes tonight. We have to listen to our students. We have to understand that relationships matter. We have to talk to our children. We have to talk with our children, but not at our children. And then the last thing, we have to limit social media. And not just for our students, because we are creating a culture of students that are having difficulty interacting with one another. But I believe this goes for adults as well. We have to make sure that we're limiting that, because guess what? It impacts us psychologically and emotionally. Everything that you see on social media is not what really is in front of you. So for our health, our well-being, the well-being of our students, the well-being of our staff, we have to make sure that we limit and we take care of ourselves. The last thing, we heard someone talk about it with a student earlier. If you are in need, if you need help, if you need to speak with someone, please seek that help. There's nothing wrong with it. There is no shame. There is no stigma with seeking mental health support. With that being said, Dr. Morley, we accept the challenge. We will work on the task force, and I'm just full. Thank you very much, everybody. Close us out, Ms. Garcia, Dr. Morley.
So I say we accept the challenge. I appreciate this conversation. My only ask is that next time, this is a district-wide conversation.
Yeah.
This was powerful. And I think as we continue to have these courageous conversations, we see more and more the need for us to come together and do the work, because it does not belong to any one group of people. And these forums always remind me that it takes all of us.
Thank you, Ms. Coward. Thank you, Dr. Tinsley. Thank you, parents, law enforcement, Pastor Moore, everyone that was on this call, those who I couldn't see, principals, teachers, anyone that was here. We just thank you so much. We love you so much, and we're going to get it together. But the bottom line is none of us is as great as all of us. And I'm looking forward to you all starting the task force.
Everybody, thank you, team. Everybody have a good night.